The Diary of a CEO, the 33 Laws of Business and Life. What if everything you were taught about success was wrong? Not slightly off, not missing a step or two, but entirely broken. What if the very rules you followed, the advice you absorbed, and the path you chased were designed not to build you, but to break you? Success is the dream. It's what we're told to crave. But here's a hard truth. Most people don't fail because they're not smart enough or talented enough. They fail because they never learned how to truly understand themselves. They build businesses on broken foundations. They chase applause with an empty heart. They climb ladders only to realize they were leaning against the wrong wall. Why do most people self-sabotage right before success? Why do others, with less talent, fewer resources, and more doubt, still rise? What separates visionary leaders from average dreamers? This video is not about motivation. It's about transformation. It's about ripping off the mask, going beneath the surface, and confronting the real reasons why so many of us are stuck in cycles of burnout, confusion, and quiet self-destruction. At the center of this is a book that refuses to lie to you. The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett isn't your typical business book. It's a confession, a reflection, a brutally honest manual about what it takes to truly succeed, not just in business, but in life. Stephen doesn't come to you as a guru. He comes to you as someone who's walked through the fire, a university dropout who became a multimillionaire by 21, a man who had everything he thought he wanted, money, fame, recognition, and yet felt completely lost. He built companies. He made headlines. He gained followers. And then he realized he didn't even know who he was. So he started asking the hard questions. What does success mean if you feel empty when you get there? What's the cost of ignoring your mental health while chasing your goals? Why does trauma, left unhealed, quietly sabotage even your best plans? In this book, Stephen reveals 33 laws, life-changing insights drawn from years of building, breaking, and rebuilding. These aren't laws like rules etched in stone. These are emotional truths, psychological patterns that explain why we do what we do and how to finally break free. And here's one that might shock you. Success doesn't fix you. It reveals you. Your insecurities, your need to be liked, your fear of being unworthy, they don't disappear when you reach the top. They get louder. Your business is a mirror of your emotional life. If your inner world is chaotic, your outer world will eventually reflect that chaos, no matter how impressive your resume looks. Most people spend their lives putting on a performance, smiling when they're broken, posting wins while hiding wounds. They become experts at looking fine and masters at falling apart in silence. This book pulls back the curtain, and in this video, we're going to walk through its most powerful ideas. We'll uncover why self-worth is your most valuable currency. We'll explore how your beliefs quietly shape your reality. We'll dig into the myths of hustle culture and the lies of overnight success. And we'll end with one idea so powerful, so personal, that it just might rewire the way you see your entire life. This isn't for people who want tips. It's for people who want truth. So if you've ever felt like you were meant for more, but couldn't figure out what was holding you back, keep watching, because your breakthrough might just be one law away. Who is Stephen Bartlett? Stephen Bartlett was not born into wealth, fame, or privilege. In fact, his story begins in a way that many can relate to, feeling like an outsider, misunderstood, and driven by a need to prove something to the world. Born in Botswana and raised in the UK, Stephen was the youngest of 4 children in a working-class family. His father was Nigerian, his mother British, and they struggled financially while Stephen was growing up. He didn't come from the kind of background that screamed success. Instead, his childhood was filled with questions. Why don't I fit in? Why do I feel like I have to earn my worth? Questions that would later shape the foundation of everything he built. At 18, he dropped out of university. He sat in lectures, looking around and realizing that what he was being taught in textbooks didn't connect with the real world he wanted to change. So he left. No degree, no backup plan, just a burning drive to make something of himself. Fast forward a few years, and Stephen Bartlett became one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the UK. He founded Social Chain, a social media marketing agency that quickly grew into a global powerhouse, working with massive brands and building online communities with millions of followers. By his mid-20s, he had already made it, at least by conventional standards. But here's where Stephen's story takes a turn. Because unlike most success stories that stop at the bank account, Stephen kept going inward. Instead of masking the pain, he exposed it. Instead of pretending he had it all figured out, he admitted what most high achievers are too afraid to say. I was wealthy, admired, and deeply unhappy. He stepped down as CEO of his own company to pursue something deeper. That decision led him to launch the Diary of a CEO podcast, a raw, intimate conversation with himself and the world, where he invited high performers, artists, entrepreneurs, and thinkers to share not just their wins, but their wounds. The podcast quickly became one of the most popular in the world. Why? Because it did what few others dared. It humanized success. Stephen wasn't asking for your applause. He was offering you his pain, his confusion, his lessons. And then at just 28, Stephen was invited to join the legendary Dragon's Den panel, becoming the youngest investor ever on the show. Not because he played by the rules, but because he rewrote them. Stephen's strength isn't just in his intellect, though he's brilliant. It's in his emotional intelligence, his willingness to cry on camera, to talk about therapy, to admit when he's lost, to say the thing we all feel but rarely voice. He doesn't lead with ego, he leads with vulnerability. And that's what makes his words cut so deep. One of his most powerful quotes, "Your life is a reflection of what you believe you deserve." Let that sink in, because that one line alone might reveal why you've stayed in bad relationships, accepted less than your worth, or played small in a world that needed you big. Stephen doesn't preach from podiums. He shares from scars. These aren't theories picked from university textbooks. These are lessons bled from experience. He's been broke. He's been broken. He's felt like a fraud, even when the world called him a success. And through it all, he's kept asking the question that drives his work. What does it mean to live a life that truly matters? In the Diary of a CEO, Stephen doesn't give you the answers. He gives you the tools to find your own. And that's why this book and this man have struck such a powerful chord with millions around the world. Because Stephen isn't just telling you how to succeed. He's showing you how to come home to yourself. Now, what is this book about? The Diary of a CEO is not just a business book. It's not a step-by-step guide to building a startup or a checklist for making your first million. It's far more intimate, more essential, and ultimately more human than that. At its core, this book is a manual for life, a toolkit for anyone who has ever felt like something was missing, even when everything looked good on the outside. Stephen Bartlett calls it 33 Laws for Business and Life. But don't let the word laws fool you. These aren't rigid commandments chiseled in stone. They are discoveries, hard-won truths pulled from years of building, breaking, succeeding, failing, and most of all, feeling. These laws are not theoretical. They come from Stephen's lived experience. The emotional battles behind the boardrooms, the sleepless nights after public victories, and the quiet moments of realization when he finally understood what truly drives fulfillment. Each of the 33 laws in this book can be thought of as a mirror, not to show you who you pretend to be, but who you actually are when no one's watching. They help you uncover why you behave the way you do, why you sabotage yourself, why you chase things you don't really want, and why success often feels empty once you catch it. Think of this book as the operating system for your mind, a way to update the outdated software that's been running silently in the background. The beliefs you inherited, the assumptions you never questioned, the identity you constructed just to feel accepted. To make the book's ideas digestible and practical, Stephen organizes the 33 laws into 5 powerful categories. 1. Self. This is the foundation. Who are you really? These laws explore your identity, your self-worth, your inner dialogue, and the invisible scripts that run your life. Stephen believes that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Until you deal with your insecurities, no level of success will feel like enough. Laws in this section challenge you to confront the stories you've been telling yourself and ask, what do I believe I deserve? 2. Mind. Here we dive into the psychology behind action and inaction. Stephen explores how your mind creates your reality through thoughts, habits, and self-talk. You'll learn how to rewire destructive patterns, manage anxiety, and get unstuck. These laws give you the tools to master the only thing you ever really control, your response to life. 3. Humans are social creatures. But so much of our pain, confusion, and struggle comes from our relationships, whether it's with friends, coworkers, partners, or even ourselves. This section is about navigating people, building trust, spotting manipulation, finding alignment, and letting go of those who drain your energy. You'll learn how to lead with empathy and set boundaries without guilt. 4. Work. This is where Stephen's business brilliance shines through. These laws help you rethink productivity, redefine what work should feel like, and avoid the trap of equating hustle with worth. You'll learn why talent is overrated, how to build discipline that lasts, and why doing meaningful work is far more sustainable than chasing praise. 5. Meaning. This is the soul of the book. Once you've explored who you are, how you think, who you surround yourself with, and how you work, it's time to ask the deeper question. Why does any of it matter? Meaning is the final thread, because without it, even the most impressive achievements feel hollow. These 33 laws don't claim to have all the answers. Instead, they help you ask the right questions. They nudge you toward uncomfortable truths and help you create a life that is not just successful, but honest, fulfilling, and deeply alive. Stephen wrote this book not to teach you how to win. He wrote it to help you figure out why you want to win in the first place. And once you know that, everything changes. Laws 1 to 5, the foundations of self. At the very core of the Diary of a CEO is this truth. You will never outperform your identity. Every action you take, every dream you chase, every relationship you nurture or sabotage stems from how you see yourself. Not how others see you, not what's in your bank account, but how you believe you deserve to be treated, to live, and to succeed. Stephen Bartlett begins his 33 laws by laying the most important groundwork. You. Because no strategy, no hack, no business model can save you from a broken self-image. The first 5 laws are deep, confronting, and often uncomfortable, but they're also where the real transformation begins. Law 1, the law of identity. Who are you? It seems like a simple question, but for most people, it's a lifelong mystery. Many of us build identities based on our circumstances, on what people told us we were, not what we chose to be. You were called lazy, so you became passive. You were told you were gifted, so you feared failure. You were rejected, so you convinced yourself you were unlovable. Stephen shares how his early life, born to immigrant parents, struggling to fit in, facing constant rejection, shaped his internal identity. As a child, he felt unwanted. His dad worked constantly. His mom was overwhelmed. And without knowing it, Stephen absorbed a dangerous message. I'm not enough. That identity became a lens. Everything he did, dropping out of university, building social chain, chasing millions, was rooted in a deep need to prove himself. He wasn't trying to succeed. He was trying to fix the person he thought he was. But identity isn't fixed. It's chosen. And the moment you start questioning the story you've been telling yourself, you can begin rewriting it. Your identity sets the ceiling for your life. If you see yourself as broken, you'll subconsciously sabotage your wins. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll walk away from opportunities. And if you believe you're powerful, you'll show up differently in every room you enter. Law 2, the law of self-worth. Here's one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. Your self-worth will always determine the size of your success, not your talent, not your intelligence, your self-worth. Stephen argues that the world is constantly mirroring back to you what you believe you deserve. If deep down you feel small, you'll settle for less. If you believe you must earn love, you'll become a performer, exhausting yourself for approval. He shares how, at the height of his business success, he still felt hollow. He had the cars, the house, the headlines, but he didn't feel worthy of any of it. His inner dialogue hadn't changed. He still felt like the outsider who needed to hustle for validation. It wasn't until he started doing the inner work, therapy, journaling, confronting past wounds, that he realized the external world can never fix an internal wound. True success begins the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start believing in it. Law 3. The law of knowing yourself. Most people don't know who they are. They know who they performed as. They know what gets them praise. But when it's quiet, when there's no audience, many feel completely lost. Stephen challenges us to get radically honest about our values, triggers, fears, and desires. Not the answers that sound good, the answers that are true. He talks about how, in his 20s, he was chasing things that didn't align with who he really was. He was building a company he no longer believed in, surrounded by people who didn't share his values, in a culture that celebrated burnout over balance. That's when he had to ask, what do I actually want? What does success mean to me? Not Instagram, not society, not investors, but me. Knowing yourself means being willing to peel back the layers, to admit what hurts, to sit in the silence without distraction, and to build a life that fits you, not the version of you the world expects. Law 4. The law of honesty. If you want to change your life, Stephen says, start by telling the truth, not just to others, to yourself. We lie to ourselves all the time. I'm fine. I don't care. It's not that bad. I'll deal with it later. But every lie you tell yourself is a brick in the wall that separates you from growth. Self-deception is the most dangerous kind of deception because it feels safe, comfortable, familiar. Stephen shares how for years he told himself that money would fix everything, that if he just got one more deal, hit one more goal, all the anxiety and emptiness would disappear. But it didn't, because he was chasing the wrong thing. When he finally admitted that he was unhappy, even while being praised by the world, it broke him open. And from that place of honesty, he began rebuilding with clarity and intention. Truth is freedom. When you can look yourself in the mirror and say, this isn't working, or I'm scared, or I want more, you unlock the power to actually do something about it. Law 5. The law of self-awareness. This law ties everything together. Self-awareness is the meta skill, the one that allows you to see yourself clearly, without ego, without shame. It's the ability to notice your patterns, to catch your reactions, and to ask, why did I do that? What belief is driving that behavior? Stephen emphasizes that success doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are being when you do it. He tells a powerful story of how he used to get angry in meetings, short-tempered, reactive, overly aggressive. On the surface, it looked like leadership, but underneath, it was insecurity. He was trying to dominate to feel in control. Once he became aware of that, everything changed. He didn't need to try to lead anymore. He just needed to heal. Self-awareness isn't a one-time realization. It's a daily practice. It's asking questions like, what emotion is driving me right now? What am I avoiding? What story am I telling myself? And the more honest you are in answering those questions, the more powerful and peaceful your life becomes. These first 5 laws aren't glamorous. They won't go viral on LinkedIn, but they are the foundation of everything else. Because if you don't know who you are, if you don't believe in your worth, if you aren't honest about your pain, if you can't see your blind spots, then no amount of strategy, motivation, or hustle will help you. You'll just keep running in the wrong direction. Stephen Bartlett's message is clear. Before you build your business, build yourself. Before you chase applause, find your voice. Before you seek love, learn to love yourself, because you are the project. And when you get that right, everything else falls into place. Laws 6 to 10, mastering your mind. There is no battlefield greater or more dangerous than the one inside your own head. Stephen Bartlett, in The Diary of a CEO, peels back the curtain on what it truly means to master your mind. These next 5 laws, laws 6 through 10, are not just psychological principles. They're the difference between leading your life and being led by your fears. You can have the talent, the opportunities, even the resources, but if you don't take control of your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional habits, you'll sabotage everything you build. As Stephen puts it, sometimes the loudest voice in your life is the one inside your head, and it's lying to you. Let's break down the laws that can transform that voice from your worst enemy into your greatest ally. Law 6, the law of thoughts. Your thoughts shape your reality. They are not just things that happen to you. They are forces that create. We often think thoughts are harmless, just noise. But repeated thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs become behavior, and behavior becomes destiny. Stephen writes about how, for years, his dominant thought pattern was, "I'm not enough." That one recurring sentence shaped everything. The way he worked, the way he loved, the way he judged himself. Even in moments of praise or victory, that thought whispered, "You're faking it." This law teaches us to interrupt the loop, to notice a thought and ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this kind? You can't stop every negative thought, but you can stop believing all of them. A tip Stephen shares is to treat your thoughts like passengers on a train. Some can stay on for the ride, but others? You need to let them off at the next stop. Mastery begins when you realize you are not your thoughts. You are the observer, and that awareness gives you power. Law 7, the law of beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts you've repeated so many times you forgot they were optional. This law challenges one of the most subtle but destructive ideas in our minds, that just because we believe something, it must be true. Stephen dives deep into how we form limiting beliefs, especially in childhood. Maybe someone told you weren't smart. Maybe you failed once and decided you were a failure. Maybe you saw someone like you never succeed, and you silently concluded, people like me don't make it. These beliefs are invisible cages. They don't just limit what you do, they limit what you see as possible. One of Stephen's most powerful insights is that belief precedes reality. If you don't believe something is possible for you, you won't take the risks, ask the questions, or see the doors that are already open. To change your life, you don't need to wait for evidence. You need to create new beliefs, ones that serve the life you want, not the life you fear. Start by asking, what do I believe about myself that's holding me back? Where did that belief come from? What would I do if I believed the opposite? You're not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because of what you believe your circumstances mean. Law 8, the law of emotion regulation. Emotions are not problems. They are signals. But for many of us, emotions feel like enemies. Anger, anxiety, fear. We try to suppress them, distract ourselves, or drown them in productivity. We believe that to be strong, we have to feel nothing. Stephen exposes that myth. He talks openly about his battles with mental health, how he'd sometimes feel waves of depression in the middle of what should have been proud moments, how even massive success couldn't silence the emotions buried beneath his ambition. Emotion regulation isn't about controlling emotions. It's about understanding them. It means recognizing when you're triggered, naming the emotion instead of avoiding it, responding instead of reacting. One of the techniques he recommends is the name it to tame it approach. When you label an emotion, I'm feeling anxious, you immediately reduce its power over you. Another is the practice of checking your emotional fuel. Am I running on fear, shame, guilt, or love, purpose, peace? Stephen's insight, if you don't process your emotions, they will process you through burnout, breakdowns, or outbursts that seem to come from nowhere. Emotional intelligence isn't a soft skill. It's a survival skill, especially for leaders. Law 9, the law of silence. In a world that's addicted to noise, podcasts, notifications, opinions, silence has become a lost art. But Stephen believes that silence is where your real answers live. He shares how some of his deepest breakthroughs came not from reading or listening, but from sitting with himself. No distractions, just presence, just stillness. Silence isn't empty. It's full of everything you've been avoiding. This law encourages us to spend time alone, in reflection, not for the sake of isolation, but for integration. Because when you stop running from yourself, you start hearing what your soul has been trying to say. He recommends daily moments of silence, whether it's 5 minutes in the morning or a walk with no phone. Journaling without censorship, letting your real thoughts out without judgment, creating white space in your calendar, where you don't do, you just are. Stephen says the silence will reveal your truth, but only if you're brave enough to listen. Law 10, the law of perspective. Perspective is the most underused superpower you have. This law teaches that how you see a problem is often more important than the problem itself. Stephen describes times when challenges that once felt impossible, like being rejected by investors, or losing friends, or facing burnout, became the best things that ever happened to him, simply because he changed how he saw them. Perspective is the ability to zoom out, to see setbacks as setups, to see failure as feedback, to understand that your story isn't over yet, and the chapter you're in doesn't define how the book ends. One of the most powerful tools for perspective that Stephen uses is gratitude. Not the fluffy kind, but the radical kind. The kind that says, this pain is teaching me. This loss is making space for better. This delay is protecting me. He also challenges us to imagine our future self looking back. Would they thank us for the decisions we're making today? Or would they wish we had taken more chances? When you shift your perspective, you reclaim your power. You're no longer a victim of your circumstances. You become the author of your experience. Final thoughts on mastering the mind. Your mind can be your prison or your power source. Stephen Bartlett doesn't offer platitudes. He offers raw truths. That the journey to success is also the journey through self-doubt, through depression, through mental chaos. And the people who win are not the ones who feel no fear, but the ones who learn to talk back to it. When you learn to master your thoughts, shape your beliefs, feel your emotions without drowning in them, sit with yourself in silence and shift your perspective, you become unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. The real enemy isn't out there. It's the voice in your head that says you're not ready, that you're not good enough, that it's too late. But here's the truth. That voice isn't you. It's your old story, and you don't have to live in it anymore. Laws 11 to 15, building resilience and character. Success is not built on comfort. It's not made in boardrooms, on stages, or in moments of applause. It's forged in private battles, through long nights of doubt, and in decisions made when no one is watching. In the Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett exposes the raw truth. Greatness is born from pain, perseverance, and ruthless self-discipline. These next 5 laws, laws 11 to 15, are not glamorous, but they are the backbone of every strong character and every lasting legacy. If you've ever wondered why some people rise despite unimaginable adversity, or how others stay focused while the world burns around them, these are the laws that answer those questions. Law 11, the law of adversity. Pain is not your enemy, it's your teacher. Stephen begins with this brutal but necessary truth. Adversity is the price of transformation. No one becomes unbreakable without first being broken. He shares his own story, growing up poor, struggling with identity, being rejected, laughed at, doubted. At one point, he was sleeping on floors, questioning whether anything he believed in was worth the suffering. But here's the twist. He doesn't wish that pain away. He's grateful for it, because in the darkness he found direction. In rejection, he found redirection. This is the resilience paradox. The harder life gets, the stronger you become, if you choose to learn instead of retreat. Adversity strips away illusions. It shows you who you really are. It forces you to adapt, evolve, and step into strength you didn't know you had. Stephen's message here is simple. Don't run from your struggle. Lean into it. Make meaning out of it. That's where your power lives. Law 12, the law of grit. Talent is a gift. Grit is a choice. Grit is the ability to keep going, not when it's exciting, but when it's exhausting. When you failed 5 times and you still show up on the sixth. When no one's watching and you're still giving your best. Stephen defines grit as the emotional endurance to pursue long-term goals, even when the short-term pain feels unbearable. He debunks the myth that winners are the most talented. Often, they're just the ones who kept going long after others quit. He shares a moment when he was launching Social Chain and the business was falling apart. Staff were quitting, investors were pulling out. Everyone told him to walk away. But he didn't. He worked longer, dug deeper, found the part of himself that refused to lose. Real grit isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the extra hour, the hard conversation, the silent commitment. How do you build grit? Start with small, consistent challenges. Push past your limits in tiny ways every day. Track your effort, not just results. Remember your why. Emotion is the fuel of persistence, and above all, build an identity around resilience. I don't stop. I adapt. Law 13. The law of pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Stephen reframes pain not as a punishment, but as data, a signal, a message that something needs your attention. Whether it's emotional pain, like loneliness, loss, or betrayal, or physical pain like burnout and fatigue, he says this: pain is not the problem. Avoiding pain is the problem. He writes about a time he felt completely lost. On paper, he was successful, but inside, he was spiraling, depressed, empty. Instead of numbing it, he listened, and it led him to inner work, therapy, journaling, deep reflection. That pain became his compass. This law teaches us to stop distracting ourselves from discomfort. Instead, sit with it. Ask, what is this pain teaching me? What truth have I been avoiding? What action do I need to take? Pain is not your punishment, it's your portal to growth. Law 14, the law of discipline. Discipline is the muscle that turns intentions into impact. Stephen calls discipline the ultimate act of self-love. Not punishment, not restriction, love. Because when you're disciplined, you honor your goals. You protect your future. You don't betray yourself for short-term pleasure. He shares his daily routines, how he structures his mornings, guards his calendar, says no to distractions. He doesn't wait for motivation. He builds systems. Here's the uncomfortable truth he delivers. The most successful people you know are the most disciplined with their time, energy, and emotions. They don't scroll for hours. They don't spend their mornings in chaos. They don't waste days on meaningless tasks or toxic relationships. They choose their habits, their inputs, their focus. Stephen challenges us to stop outsourcing discipline to good moods or when we feel like it. He says, do it anyway. Show up anyway. And over time, discipline turns into freedom. Because when you master your habits, you master your destiny. Tips to develop discipline. Create identity-based habits. I am someone who follows through. Remove friction. Make good habits easy, bad ones hard. Start small. One promise kept builds momentum. Track progress and reward consistency, not perfection. Law 15, the law of control. Control is not about manipulating life. It's about mastering your response to it. So many people waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable, people's opinions, the economy, outcomes. Stephen flips the script. He says the only thing you ever truly control is your reaction. He shares how he used to obsess over people's judgments, how he tried to control team dynamics, market trends, public perception, but it drained him, and it never worked. Peace came when he stopped asking, how do I control this? And started asking, how do I respond powerfully to this? Control is about internal power, emotional regulation, detachment from things that aren't yours to fix. He gives us 3 areas to always take control of. 1, your attention, where your focus goes, your energy flows. 2, your interpretation, meaning creates emotion. 3, your response. Choose aligned action, not impulsive reaction. When you realize you don't need to control everything, you just need to control you, you become unstoppable. Final thoughts on resilience and character. These 5 laws aren't glamorous. They won't trend on social media, but they are the secret ingredients of every powerful, peaceful, purposeful person you admire. Adversity, grit, pain, discipline, control. These are the forge, the training ground, the silent rituals that build unshakable character. Stephen Bartlett doesn't just talk about these things, he's lived them. And through his journey, he invites us to stop chasing comfort and start chasing clarity. Because resilience isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand inside it and still move forward. And if you're willing to do that, you won't just survive. You'll lead, you'll grow, you'll transform. Pain breeds power, and your story is still being written. Laws 16 to 20, navigating relationships and people. Business is people, life is people, and your success, both professional and personal, will always be limited by your ability to relate, communicate, and connect. Stephen Bartlett makes it crystal clear. You can have the best ideas, the strongest work ethic, even the sharpest mind. But if you don't understand people, you'll always hit a wall. In the Diary of a CEO, Laws 16 to 20 are not just about networking or managing teams. They go much deeper. These laws are about understanding the emotional architecture of human connection and protecting your peace from the people who might destroy it. Let's dive in. Law 16, the law of communication. Communication isn't about talking, it's about connection. Stephen opens this section with a reminder. Your ability to communicate will determine the quality of your life. He explains that most people listen to respond, not to understand. They speak to impress, not to connect. That's why so many relationships, romantic, professional and personal, fail. The bridge between two people collapses because no one is actually hearing each other. Stephen shares a moment from his leadership journey where a conflict in his team nearly imploded the business. The problem? Not bad intentions, not incompetence, just poor communication, assumptions, unspoken fears, and unexpressed needs. He learned the hard way that great leaders aren't just visionaries, they're translators. They bridge minds and emotions. They make people feel seen, not just heard. Practical takeaways. Use I statements, not accusations. Clarify intent before jumping to conclusions. Create psychological safety in conversations. People open up where they feel safe. Practice mirror listening. Reflect what someone said before adding your point. The truth? The better you get at communication, the less drama, conflict, and chaos you'll have in your life. Law 17, the law of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form. Stephen dismantles the outdated myth that being vulnerable is risky or unprofessional. He shows that vulnerability, honest, transparent self-expression, is a superpower in leadership and life. He shares the turning point in his podcast, The Diary of a CEO. When he started being more vulnerable, talking about his mental health, fears, and failures, his audience exploded. People weren't craving perfection, they were craving truth. In business and relationships, vulnerability creates trust. It builds bridges. It makes you real. But it's scary. Why? Because it risks rejection. It requires dropping the mask. Stephen gives this reminder. If people only love the mask, you'll never feel loved. Only when you show who you truly are can you receive real connection. He urges us to lead with authenticity, to say, I'm struggling when you are, to say, I need help without shame. Vulnerability doesn't make you less powerful. It makes you more human, and that's where real influence begins. Law 18, the law of trust. Trust is the currency of all relationships. Without it, everything collapses. Stephen emphasizes that trust isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in small, repeated actions, in consistency, in reliability, in doing what you said you would do. He reflects on moments when trust was broken in his life. Partners who lied, friends who betrayed, colleagues who manipulated. The pain wasn't just from the act. It was from the collapse of the emotional safety net. But just as easily as trust can be broken, it can also be intentionally built. He shares a strategy he uses in business. Transparency. Always say the hard truth early. It prevents bigger pain later. Consistency. Your words and actions must match, especially when no one is watching. Competence. Show up prepared. Trust grows when people believe in your ability. Character. Do what's right, not what's easy. The equation is simple. Trust equals credibility plus reliability plus vulnerability. And once you've earned trust, guard it. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Law 19, the law of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. You get to choose who enters. This law might be the hardest for people pleasers, but Stephen says it plainly. If you don't set boundaries, you will be used, drained, and eventually broken. He recounts a time in his early career when he said yes to everything. Every meeting, every call, every partnership. Eventually, his mental health deteriorated. His creativity died. He was surviving, not thriving. He realized this. Every yes to someone else was a no to myself. Boundaries are a declaration of self-worth. They say, my time matters, my energy matters, I matter. Here's how Stephen reframes boundaries. They are not selfish. They are sacred. The people who respect your boundaries are the ones who deserve your time. Boundaries don't require explanation. Clarity is kindness. Practical examples. Blocking out time where you're unreachable. Saying no without apology. Reevaluating relationships that constantly drain you. Because here's the truth. If they cost you your peace, they're too expensive. Law 20, the law of energy drainers. Not everyone deserves access to you. Stephen introduces one of the most life-changing insights in this chapter. Your environment is not neutral. It's either feeding your energy or draining it. He breaks people into two categories. Radiators, people who uplift, inspire, energize, challenge you in the best way. Drainers, people who gossip, complain, manipulate, or subtly make you feel small. The tough reality? Sometimes the drainers are friends, family, people you've known for years. Stephen shares his personal transformation, how he had to let go of relationships that were built on obligation, not alignment. He had to detox his social circle to protect his mission, his peace, his mind. Signs of energy drainers. You feel exhausted after interacting with them. You're constantly defending your dreams. They downplay your wins and amplify your flaws. Removing them isn't cruel. It's necessary. He gives this bold call to action. Audit your circle. If they don't support your growth, they don't deserve your presence. Protecting your energy is the most generous thing you can do for yourself and the people who truly value you. Final thoughts on navigating people. These 5 laws are emotional armor. They protect your peace while sharpening your relational power. Because success isn't built in isolation. It's built in rooms full of people. And if you can learn to communicate clearly, be vulnerable without shame, build trust consistently, set boundaries unapologetically, and remove energy drainers ruthlessly, then you'll not only succeed, you'll succeed in peace. In Stephen Bartlett's world, leadership is not just about vision, it's about emotional intelligence, relational mastery, the courage to choose connection, and the discipline to walk away when that connection becomes poison. Remember, you don't owe everyone access to you. You owe yourself the version of you that's peaceful, powerful, and protected. And that starts with the people you allow into your world. Choose wisely. Laws 21 to 25. Winning in business. In the realm of entrepreneurship, success doesn't belong to the smartest person in the room. It belongs to the one who can execute relentlessly, adapt boldly, and stay obsessed with delivering real value. Stephen Bartlett knows this truth firsthand. As the co-founder of Social Chain, a multi-million-pound marketing juggernaut built from scratch in his 20s, he's lived through the startup storms, scaling chaos, and the lonely discipline of innovation. Laws 21 through 25 in the Diary of a CEO are a masterclass in how to win in business, not theoretically, but experientially. These aren't borrowed lessons from textbooks. They are born from sleepless nights, near bankrupt mornings, and courageous pivots. Let's break them down. Law 21, the law of innovation. Innovation isn't about having new ideas. It's about seeing old problems with new eyes. Stephen opens with a blunt truth. The world doesn't reward originality. It rewards usefulness. He reminds us that innovation doesn't require a new invention. It requires a new way to serve a deep human need better than anyone else. Social Chain didn't invent social media, but it revolutionized how brands connect with Gen Z by understanding culture in real time. Stephen emphasizes that innovation comes from obsession, not intellect. The people who disrupt industries are the ones who obsess over problems longer than everyone else is willing to. He shares how he created test and learn loops in his team, building a culture where experimentation was rewarded and failure wasn't fatal, but fuel. Key insights. Innovators ask better questions, not just smarter ones. They marry creativity with empathy. What do people actually need? They build with the customer, not just for them. Innovation is simply this: service with a twist. And the twist? That's your genius. Law 22, the law of execution. An idea without execution is just an expensive hallucination. Stephen doesn't romanticize startup life. He knows what really separates dreamers from doers: discipline. He says it clearly. Most people don't fail because of lack of ideas. They fail because of lack of discipline. Execution is the boring, brutal work most people avoid. Following through, meeting deadlines, showing up when motivation disappears. Stephen explains how Social Chain won by being faster than the competition, not necessarily smarter. They shipped content rapidly, analyzed in real time, and iterated without ego. They weren't paralyzed by perfection. They were propelled by momentum. Tactics for better execution, time blocking, schedule execution, not just meetings. Accountability loops, make your commitments public. Focus sprints, work in short, intense bursts, then review. The difference between a six-figure business and a billion-dollar brand? Execution, not just inspiration. Law 23, the law of momentum. Momentum is the invisible force that turns effort into acceleration. Stephen believes momentum is the entrepreneur's best friend and worst enemy when lost. It's that stretch of time when everything clicks, opportunities multiply, and motivation feels effortless. But momentum isn't luck. It's a product of consistency. He explains that most people break momentum by overthinking. They get one win, then freeze. They launch once, then disappear. True momentum comes from volume, not just value. He shares how Social Chain maintained momentum by keeping creative teams cross-functional and lean, removing bureaucratic delays, rewarding speed and initiative. He warns, momentum dies in meetings. To keep momentum alive, do more and talk less. Action attracts clarity. Motion creates emotion. Remember, the hardest part is starting, but the second hardest is not stopping. Law 24, the law of simplicity. Complexity kills companies. Simplicity scales them. Stephen reflects on the trap many founders fall into, trying to impress with complex strategies, bloated features, and overpolished decks. But customers don't care how smart you sound. They care how clearly you solve their problem. He gives the golden rule of simplicity. If your grandmother doesn't understand it, it's too complicated. Social Chain grew fast because its offer was clear. We make your brand famous on social. That's it. No jargon, no confusion, just straight value. Internally, simplicity was their operating system. Simple processes, simple metrics, simple feedback loops. Stephen gives this challenge. Audit your life and business. Where are you making things harder than they need to be? Practical tips. Write your pitch in 10 words. Reduce your product's features to its top 3 real benefits. Cut meetings by 50%. Replace with clear written briefs. Simplicity isn't easy, but it's worth everything because clarity converts and confusion kills. Law 25, the law of product obsession. The best marketing in the world can't save a mediocre product. This is the law Stephen is most passionate about, and the one most ignored by first-time entrepreneurs. He shares a turning point in his business journey, realizing that flashy branding and clever ads were worthless if the product didn't genuinely solve a problem better than the competition. He says, "Too many founders are obsessed with being seen. I became obsessed with being useful." Product obsession means constantly using your own product, relentlessly gathering feedback, improving features even when customers aren't complaining. At Social Chain, product obsession looked like late-night A/B tests, asking clients uncomfortable questions and killing campaigns that didn't perform, even if they looked cool. Stephen warns, if you love your brand more than your customer loves your product, you're headed for failure. Great entrepreneurs fall in love with solving, not selling. Final reflections on business laws. These 5 laws are the foundation of sustainable success in business. They're not hacks or shortcuts. They're disciplines that build legacy. Let's recap. Innovation gives you a reason to exist. Execution brings that reason to life. Momentum keeps you alive. Simplicity keeps you scalable. Product obsession makes you unforgettable. Stephen Bartlett's genius isn't that he built a flashy brand. It's that he built it on substance. His success wasn't hype. It was the result of deep focus, brutal honesty, and customer-first obsession. And that's the hard truth. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but for those willing to sacrifice ego, embrace discomfort, and stay relentlessly disciplined, it's the greatest path of self-actualization there is. Because business isn't just about making money, it's about making something that matters. Laws 26 to 30, leading with vision. Leadership is not about commanding armies or giving orders from the top of a mountain. True leadership is about holding a vision so clear, so compelling, that others can't help but see themselves in it. Stephen Bartlett believes leadership isn't something you're given. It's something you earn through clarity, consistency, and conviction. And in these 5 laws, he doesn't just explain how to lead, he explains how to lead in a way that leaves a legacy. Law 26, the law of vision. Great leaders don't just build businesses, they build futures. Stephen opens with a powerful reflection. The strongest force in the human psyche is the need for a clear and meaningful destination. Vision isn't a fluffy mission statement you slap on a wall. Vision is the emotional compass that guides every decision, every hire, every product, every message. When vision is clear, confusion dies. Momentum rises. People move in unison. He tells a story from his early days, how a single, simple vision to change the way young people consume media turned a ragtag team of misfits into a marketing empire. That clarity filtered everything. It told them who to hire, which clients to reject, and when to pivot. Your vision should answer a human need, not just a business goal. Be repeatable in one sentence. Inspire belief and drive behavior. Without vision, you're managing. With it, you're leading. Law 27, the law of culture. Culture is what people do when no one is watching. Stephen writes that most companies get this wrong. They think culture is Pizza Fridays or quirky slogans. But culture is behavioral DNA. It's how your team responds to pressure. It's what they prioritize. It's how they treat each other. Social Chain thrived because its culture was intentional. They celebrated courage, creativity, and contribution. Toxicity was called out. Fast. Ego wasn't rewarded. Teamwork was. Stephen emphasizes, you don't build culture, you protect it. Because culture is always under attack. By stress, by growth, by success. Practical tips to protect culture. Hire for values, not just skill. Reinforce cultural behaviors in meetings and rewards. Eliminate energy drainers, even if they're talented. Culture doesn't come after success, it creates it. Law 28, the law of mission. Mission is the emotional why behind your business. Stephen urges founders and leaders to get painfully honest. Why does your company deserve to exist? If the answer is money, you've already lost. Social Chain wasn't built to sell ads. It was built to give brands a voice in youth culture. That mission gave the team a reason to push through 16-hour days, client rejections, and burnout. Because they weren't just showing up for paychecks. They were showing up for purpose. Mission gives your business soul, and people don't buy from soulless companies. They buy from movements. Stephen challenges leaders to write their mission in terms of human transformation. Not we build tech, but we make people feel connected. Not we sell fitness, but we help people love their bodies again. Great companies answer this question. Who are we here to serve, and what are we really helping them become? When your mission matters, your work matters. Law 29, the law of decision-making. Your life is a product of your last 100 decisions. Stephen pulls no punches here. Leadership is decision-making, period. And most people are terrible at it. They delay hard calls, they outsource to committees, they ignore data, or worse, they ignore intuition. Stephen offers a model, logic plus instinct plus alignment. Logic, what do the numbers say? Instinct, what does your gut say? Alignment, does this decision serve your vision, values, and mission? He shares times he got this wrong. Expanding too fast, trusting the wrong partners, ignoring his gut to look rational. The cost was always higher than expected. Key decision-making advice. Set criteria before you face the emotion of the moment. Limit decisions per day. Decision fatigue is real. Use silence to clarify. The right answer often surfaces in stillness. And this gem, don't confuse urgency with importance. Not every fire is worth fighting. The speed of your growth is tied to the speed of your decisions and the wisdom behind them. Law 30, the law of legacy. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you live every day. Stephen closes this section with a reflection on mortality, how thinking about death clarifies how we want to live. He asks, if your company disappeared tomorrow, who would truly miss it? That's the test of legacy. He encourages leaders to shift from ego-driven to impact-driven. Not how many followers, awards, or dollars, but how many lives changed, how many minds expanded, how many people were better off because you existed. Legacy is built in small moments, how you treat people, how you lead in crisis, how you uphold your values when it's inconvenient. Stephen shares how his own podcast, The Diary of a CEO, became a mission to bring radical honesty to conversations most people are too afraid to have. That vulnerability created ripple effects in listeners around the world. That's legacy, when your presence outlives your performance. Final reflection. What kind of story will they tell about you when you're gone? Live that story now, every day, in every decision. That's how legacy is born. Final thoughts on visionary leadership. These 5 laws aren't just about business. They're about becoming someone others want to follow. Not because you're powerful, but because you're purposeful. Vision pulls people into the future. Culture shapes the environment they grow in. Mission gives them a reason to care. Decision-making keeps the machine moving, and legacy gives the entire journey meaning. Stephen Bartlett doesn't offer hacks. He offers heart. And in a world chasing attention, heart is your unfair advantage. Because real leadership isn't about building a company, it's about building a calling. Laws 31 to 33. Living a meaningful life. In the final stretch of The Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett stops talking about business, leadership, or success. Instead, he dives into something far more difficult and far more important: meaning. Because what's the point of achievement if it leaves you feeling empty? What's the value of a full calendar if your soul feels hollow? These final 3 laws, the law of death, the law of purpose, and the law of enough, are not meant to impress you. They are meant to wake you up. Law 31, the law of death. Stephen begins this law with an uncomfortable but liberating truth. You are going to die, and that's the best news you'll ever hear. Most people run from the thought of death, but Stephen insists, death is the ultimate life coach. It sharpens your focus, clarifies your values, and exposes the lies you tell yourself. When you remember you're not here forever, suddenly, the email you're stressing over doesn't matter. The argument you're holding on to feels pointless. The dreams you've been delaying feel urgent. Stephen shares that reflecting on death made him braver. It helped him leave businesses that no longer aligned with his soul. It pushed him to say, "I love you" more often. It made him stop living for applause and start living for authenticity. Ask yourself, if I died a year from now, what would I regret not doing? That's your compass. Because death doesn't rob us of time, denial does. Law 32, the law of purpose. If death is the compass, purpose is the map. Stephen is brutally honest here. Achieving your goals won't fulfill you unless they're tied to something deeper, something real, something you. He calls it the success void, that eerie emptiness that creeps in after hitting a big milestone. You got the promotion, you made the money, you earned the title, but something's still missing. That something is purpose. Purpose isn't always sexy or public. It's not found in applause or headlines. It's found in service, in truth, in contribution. Stephen asks one of the most piercing questions in the book. What if the goal isn't to be impressive, but to be real? To be real in your relationships, your work, your identity. That's purpose. It's when you're doing and you're being aligned. He warns, don't outsource your purpose to social media metrics or other people's expectations. Your purpose might be to create, to heal, to nurture, to challenge, to build, to teach. But whatever it is, make sure it's yours. How do you know you found your purpose? It energizes you even when no one's watching. It survives rejection, failure, and fatigue. It feels like home. Stephen discovered his purpose when he stopped chasing significance and started chasing service. Law 33, the law of enough. This is the final and perhaps most powerful law, because once you understand death and discover purpose, you must confront one last illusion, the myth of more. Stephen calls this the arrival fallacy, the belief that you'll finally be happy when you hit the number, meet the person, get the fame, build the dream. But fulfillment never lives in the future. It lives in the now. He writes, enough is not a finish line. It's a mindset. Too many people are stuck in a race with no finish. They've tied their self-worth to an ever-moving target, and in doing so, they rob themselves of the joy that's already here. Stephen shares his own story, sitting in a luxury apartment, surrounded by everything he thought he wanted, and feeling utterly disconnected. That was the moment he realized, success is not about more, it's about meaning. You are enough right now as you are. That doesn't mean you stop growing. It means your growth is no longer fueled by fear or lack, but by love and alignment. He challenges readers with one final question. Can you feel worthy without proving it? If you can, you've won. Not the world's game, your game. Final reflections, the life behind the laws. Stephen Bartlett began his journey as a dropout, a misfit, a kid searching for value in all the wrong places. But through failure, heartbreak, obsession, and reflection, he discovered something deeper than success. He discovered truth. These last three laws invite you to drop the mask, to stop running, to listen to your life, because meaning isn't something you find. It's something you build, moment by moment, law by law, choice by choice. Reflect on death to cherish life. Live with purpose, not performance. And know when you have enough. You don't need to be more to matter. You just need to be more you. And maybe that's what this book was trying to say all along. Final takeaways. After walking through the 33 laws in the Diary of a CEO, something becomes unmistakably clear. This book isn't just a roadmap to success. It's a blueprint for healing, for becoming, for coming home to yourself. Stephen Bartlett didn't write these laws from theory. He wrote them from his scars, from rejection, from fear, from chasing the world and finding it hollow. That's what makes this book different. That's what makes it real. Let's slow down and breathe this in. The laws that change everything. We covered so much: identity, resilience, purpose, leadership, but a few laws hit so deep they echo in your soul. These are the ones you don't just remember, you live. Law of self-worth. Everything rises and falls on this. Your relationships, your career, your dreams, all limited or expanded by what you believe you deserve. Stephen said it best: your life is a reflection of what you believe you deserve. If you want to change your outcomes, upgrade your self-worth. Law of emotion regulation. Mastering your mind isn't a luxury, it's survival. Your emotions can become your prison or your power. Learn to feel without being ruled. Law of pain. Pain is the entrance to greatness. We often try to avoid discomfort, but as Stephen shows, the pain you're avoiding may be the very door to the life you're meant to live. Law of boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. If someone costs you your peace, they're too expensive. Protect your space. That's where your power lives. Law of death. Death reframes everything. It removes the noise, the ego, the pretending. It whispers, live now, speak now, be real now. How this book changed me. Before I read The Diary of a CEO, I thought success meant always doing more, being more, proving more. I chased results. I performed. I sought validation in numbers, metrics, praise. But somewhere along the way, I got tired. Not just physically, spiritually. I felt like I had built a life that looked good, but didn't feel true. I was achieving goals, but losing myself. This book called me out and called me home. It helped me realize that productivity without presence is just performance. It reminded me that the strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones brave enough to feel, to be seen, to say, I don't have it all figured out. It challenged me to define success not by how high I climb, but how whole I become in the process. And the most beautiful truth I learned: you are not broken, you're becoming. And that's the most beautiful part. A message to you watching this. You might feel lost, or tired, or stuck between who you were and who you want to become. You might be facing quiet battles no one knows about. You might be questioning your worth because your timeline doesn't match someone else's. But hear this: you are not late. You are not behind. And you don't need to be fixed. Everything you are going through is shaping you, sharpening you, preparing you for something bigger. You, not the version of you that gets applause. The version of you that can sit in silence and still feel whole. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are not limited by your past. You are becoming layer by layer, law by law, choice by choice. What you can do now. If any part of this video stirred something inside you, here's what I invite you to do. 1. Read the book. Don't just watch the summary. Dive into the real pages. Let Stephen's voice challenge and guide you like it did me. 2. Journal your truths. Write down the laws that hit home. Reflect on where you've been lying to yourself, where you're hiding, where you're hurting. Then ask, who am I becoming? 3. Build your inner world. Success begins on the inside. No title, no bank balance, no follower count will fill the void if your inner life is neglected. Invest in your peace, in your healing, in your values. That's where real wealth lives. Your legacy starts now. Let's end with this thought. You are here, breathing, watching, and reflecting, because something in you knows you're meant for more. Not more followers or fame, but more truth, more depth, more freedom, more you. Let the world chase shiny things. You chase your soul. That's where your legacy lives. And remember, you are not broken. You're becoming. And that's the most beautiful part. If this video inspired you or gave you something to think about, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Your support helps this message reach more people, and it might just change a life. Which lesson from this book spoke to you most?